alaikum wa rahmatullah. This is a regular question and answer session which we used to have in the mosque. Only the venue has changed. So, as freely and casually as you used to ask questions there, you are permitted again to ask any question you please. Or if someone wants to make an observation of any sort, is also permitted. Raise your hands if you want to ask a question or two. One after the other. Please starting from the front. Yes, please. When some come to go to the microphone, I think we better create some early ways up to the microphone. In the middle, if you part a little bit, if anybody wants to ask a question, you will have to walk up to the microphone. यहाँ से पीछे की तरफ और यहाँ साइड से एक बना दें बस. Yes?
Is there any reference in the Holy Quran that the sinners will not be left in the dozakh all the time? They will serve their punishment and then be moved out of the dozakh.
That's right.
Okay. Is there any reference in the Holy Quran?
Well, there are so many references in the Holy Quran to the effect that whenever Jannat, that is paradise, is mentioned together with hell, there you find a difference in description. About Jannat, that is paradise, the words used are that of eternity. And about Jahannam, whenever they are described together, it is always a comparatively shorter period which is indicated in comparison. For instance, if both are declared to be Khalidin, about Jannat it would be said Ghair al-Maqtul. For instance, things which are qualifying Jannat to be definitely longer than the dozakh, that is hell. So from that it is obviously inferred. And secondly, there are other verses of the Holy Quran which are guidelines in principle. For instance, the Holy Quran declares positively that of all the attributes of Allah, Rahman, that is the most beneficent, is overwhelming over the rest of all the attributes of Allah. So that means every attribute will have to be translated under the influence of Rahmaniyat. So from that, Hazrat Masih Maud is inferred that Rahmaniyat is the supreme, and every attribute will fall short of Rahmaniyat. In the end, Rahmaniyat is going to win ultimately. This is exactly how Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has described the end of hell. He says a time will come when the hell would be like an empty house of which has been deserted by inhabitants, and the winds would knock its doors about, and there would be no one in except for one last person. So he would creep out ultimately, and he will request to Allah that if I can't go to the heaven, please permit me to sit outside heaven so that I can have the sight. Now, Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam describes things so lovingly, so beautifully, that it makes the most charming tale of any tales in the world, while he talks of realities. So he says that when this is Allah's way, Allah would like him to ask such a question, would like him to behave like this, and it's only that Allah is playing lovingly with him. That is the style of the whole episode. So Allah would say, all right, come and sit before the heaven. So he said, okay, it's beautiful from outside. Could I have a little sight of from inside, a peep into it? Could the gate be opened just a wee bit so that I could see what was inside? So Allah said, okay. Allah would say, okay, you can do that. And the doors would be opened slightly, and beautiful breeze of heaven would flow in his direction, and he will be transformed and transcended. So he would say, Allah is so beautiful, can I have just a closer look? And peep into it right from the close. Allah would say, yes, you can come. Then he would say, oh please God, don't keep me out. And Allah would say, yes, come on. So that would be the last of hell. Now how could Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam describe heaven and hell in this fashion if it had no roots in the Holy Quran? It is Hazrat Masih Maud who has explained this phenomena at length, and you will find many references in his interpretations of the Holy Quran. He has interpreted from various verses, and the main fundamental verse which covers everything is that verse which tells us that Rahmaniyat is supreme and it overwhelms all other attributes of Allah. After you have missed the first term, I'll come to you later on after I have finished. Yes, please.
So मैंने नज़म लिखी थी, आपको भेजी थी, वो मैं पढ़ना चाहता हूँ।
अच्छा,
जी
कौन सी नज़म थी वो आपकी?
जो आपको मैंने लिखी थी खत में, और आपका खत में मुझे मिला।
खत में मैंने क्या कहा था, ठीक नज़म है?
हाँ जी, यहीं पर लिखी जी।
अच्छी थी?
जी हाँ।
Okay, all right. He has composed a poem which he wants to recite. Please. In Urdu, will you translate it afterwards?
چلی ہے پھر سے ہوا مخالف نہ سوچ کشتی کا کیا بنے گا.
Just a moment, let me introduce him. He accepted Ahmadiyyat after I came there only a few months ago. Mr. Arshad, is your name?
محمد ارشد مغل.
محمد ارشد مغل, yes.
جس دن آرڈیننس جنرل صاحب نے واپس کیا نا, اسی دن میں نے ان کی اور اس کے
On the same day he accepted Ahmadiyyat when the ordinance was passed, the notorious ordinance we mean, in Pakistan. And then he came and got initiated at my hands as well when I reached here a few days afterwards. That's right. Yes.
اور یہ آرڈیننس کے بعد میں نے یہ نظم لکھی اور
Right.
چلی ہے پھر سے ہوا مخالف نہ سوچ کشتی کا کیا بنے گا. جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنے گا. جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنے گا. ہماری جانیں ہماری آنیں تو بک چکی ہیں خدا کے ہاتھوں. ہماری جانیں ہماری آنیں تو بک چکی ہیں خدا کے ہاتھوں. ہمیں تو اب تیرا غم ہے ظالم کہ تیری حسرت کا کیا بنے گا. جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنے گا. ہے میری دنیا عمل کی دنیا ہے تیری دنیا جہل کی دنیا. ہے میری دنیا عمل کی دنیا ہے تیری دنیا جہل کی دنیا. ہے میرے دل کا خدا سلامت تیرا دوں کچھ جدا بنوں گا جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنوں گا سنت اللہ ہے غم کے نعرہ سنت اللہ ہے غم کے نعرہ نہ خوف کھاؤ خدا کے یارو خدا کی نصرت بنے گی موسیٰ پھر جب بھی خدا بنوں گا جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنوں گا اے مرد حق تیرے دل مقابل گرا تھا کل پھر گرے گا باطل اے مرد حق تیرے دل مقابل گرا تھا کل پھر گرے گا باطل ملے گا قدرت سے پھر نیا پل نشان پھر ایک نیا بنوں گا جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنوں گا جو دشمنوں کی نادانیاں ہیں فتح مبین کی نشانیاں ہیں جو دشمنوں کی نادانیاں ہیں فتح مبین کی نشانیاں ہیں خدا کی ہستی کے دل مقابل شیطان کیا سرا بنوں گا جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنوں گا اے میرے آقا خدا کی قدرت کے پھول دنیا میں یوں کھلیں گے اے میرے آقا خدا کی قدرت کے پھول دنیا میں یوں کھلیں گے کہ دین احمد کی بو اڑے گی جہاں یہ جنت نما بنوں گا کہ دین احمد کی بو اڑے گی جہاں یہ جنت نما بنوں گا جو دین احمد کا نا خدا ہے وہ آج بھی رہنما بنوں گا
تکبیر احمدیت
This is a good attempt, but it needs a little correction here and there, technically speaking. So you better send it to me again, because when I approved of it, it was in general way. I didn't know you were going to recite it at some regular session. So you send it to me. I'll correct it myself and send you back, right?
Okay, so میں نے خط میں لکھا تھا یہ کہ اگر اس میں کوشچن کر دیں میں نے لیٹر میں لکھا تھا کہ اگر کوشچن ہو تو حضور فرما دیں تو اور ساری میں نے اس کی
but then I didn't have time, you know. So much mail, I just had to pass over it. So next, now I promise you, if you send me, I'll correct it and then send you back, right? After those from behind, somebody raised his hand from the third row from here. No? You withdrawn his hand, yes? Rafi Nasser and then Rajeev Sahib. I'll come back to you again. And then you.
اردو میں سوال کروں گا. یہ انشورنس جو ہے اس کے بارے میں
इस्लाम अहमदियत क्या कहती है?
Already I've spoken on this subject a few days ago in the session there in London. So I don't have to repeat it. I mean, there's no need to repeat it because already I have spoken at quite some length. Now, Mujibul Haq Sahab.
Sir, I'm sorry, I will take it back because I recollected that you... I will take my question back because I recollected that you said London people should withhold.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily, but I think there's still time. You can now.
Right, okay. One of my friends, after the prayers, he said, shouldn't we say the prayers as we are on journey at here? And I replied that it was it was our center, so we shouldn't. Would you kindly confirm?
You know, the question of deciding whether you are on a journey or not is a time-old question, but the answers to this question would vary from time to time. The same question as asked at the time of our Hazur sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be differently asked, will differently answered, and now it should be differently answered. And again, not only has it a bearing with time, it is also a variable factor according to the country in which that question is asked or about which the question is asked. The distances, the concept of distances changes. For instance, Chicago is a widely spread out town where I remember myself when I was invited to lunch at some place, we had to drive 70 miles into Chicago to go for lunch. Then tea was at a different place and we had to drive back 50 miles to the point of tea. And from there for dinner we were about, I think, 70-80 miles distant. And so for just one lunch and one evening tea and one dinner, I travelled within that town, within that city, 150 odd miles. So the concept of journey has completely got transformed there. Nobody can say because you have travelled up to lunch, say 60 miles, so you should start having your prayers. Qasr is not applicable in such situations. So it is the best judge is the conditions where you live. According to those conditions, if you apply the question, your conscience would be again the best judge. Then you will know whether this is a journey or not. So in the conditions which prevailed here in England, I think this short distance is just a hop, a picnic hop, that's all. But if you really intend to travel, your inner self tells you that this is really traveling. And when you start such a journey, then even a small part of that journey is called a journey, and the regulations and rules of the journey begin to apply. That is the second part which I want to make clear because many people might not have known this. Suppose you want to go to some really different town and a different place, you yourself decide it is a journey. Now when you have just left the town limits, your journey begins, even if you have travelled not much. And after that, you will continue to have your prayers, those prayers which are to be halved, and when you return, until you have reached the very limits of the town, you will be still considered on journey. So here, I think it is a very doubtful question. Yet if somebody does that, no one else has a right to say you have committed a positive wrong, because these are borderline issues in which everyone can judge things for himself. Unless you are in a session which is a community occasion like this is, then it is not for the individual to judge, it's only for the head of the organization, whoever it is, to judge, and that should follow in that regard. Now I did not intentionally do it, apart from the fact that my personal feeling was that it is not a journey. Apart from this fact, I was inclined not to halve the prayer because, we have not yet said the prayer which is to be halved, but I don't mean to either, because Islamabad is like a home to us all here, and we should treat it like a small center here. So in Rabba too, when people come from far and wide, they don't halve their prayers, although they are permitted. Strictly speaking, according to the strict laws, they are permitted. But no one feels like, they feel like being at home. So this is the atmosphere of this place, or this is the atmosphere which I should like to be built about this place. So this is why I am not going to say the prayer in house as you do in journey.
This is what I had in my mind, sir, that being the center, the aspect of my question as well.
Like you should treat it like your home, that's be free and casual about it and feel at home and feel intimately close to this place. Yes, please, Shah.
When a person is talking to another person and names somebody, there is always
just a moment, please. If a person is talking to some other person and
to another person,
yes,
and names somebody, there is always assumed that he must be a third person. Just if I say, Hazur, pray for Zaid, it means Zaid is a third person. With this background, my question is, did Hazrat Rasulullah used to say Drood? If so, when he mentioned Allah Muhammadin, what did he mean by Muhammad at that time?
Now this is in fact a question about the language, the style of language. The fact is that in every language you will find such instances where a man can refer to himself by announcing his own name. For instance, in Arabic, in the traditions you read about Hazrat Abu Bakr saying, Ibn Abu Quhafa cannot do this, while it was he himself. Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is known to have named himself Muhammad, Rabbi Muhammad and so on. So these are the styles of the language. And when somebody names himself, that sentence rises above the normal and becomes definitely much more powerful and forceful. So when Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent durood upon himself, I am quite certain he was doing it with much greater love because he was sending you to himself, but he knew that this is Allah saying, and Allah has used his name as third person and told everybody to send durood upon him. So those words would have been extremely dear to him, not because it was his own person that was involved, but something from Allah had come his way. So why should he have changed that style? If someone whom you love has mentioned you in a certain way, even in ordinary relationships on earth, people tend to repeat that. That is my experience too with letters. Sometimes in my letters I write something about someone and he's so happy about it that he repeats the same sentence about himself in the letter to enjoy it, to say that I am the one about whom you said this. So how much more Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was justified to adopt that attitude vis-a-vis himself if things were said by Allah about him. That is how I conceive this. Yes, now it's your turn at last. But where are Rashid Hayat Sahib and Rashid Hayat Sahib and Muhammad Abdul Rashid?
Rashid Hayat Sahib has just arrived and he is shaving.
shivering at the prospects of so many people asking questions. Why don't you provide him with a cup of tea immediately? That's your job.
This is an observation about the first question on heaven and hell.
On what?
On heaven and hell.
Heaven and hell, yes, that's right.
And the observation is from Glasgow. I would like to quote one very interesting incident. There is a faith sharing committee in Glasgow which consists of members of all religions. Islam is represented by non-Ahmadis.
Not by you?
By non-Ahmadis.
Not by you?
Well, they have always prevented us to go there as a community.
Yet you find your way in, don't you?
Yes, that's right. We do find our way on one such occasion when I did find a way. After Mauli Saab's speech,
which Mauli Saab? Someone, yes.
Mauli Maqbool, and he represents Big Guy. Someone, a white man, said, what is your concept of hell in Islam? Mauli Saab said, our hell in Islam is permanent.
Yes.
I was stunned. Addressing to the chairman, I said, well, if it is Mauli Saab's own words, then I wouldn't dispute. But if you are asking what is concept of hell in Islam, then it is temporary, and it is like a vast area in which every sinner will be washed and then go to heaven. Mauli Saab said, oh, Jafar Saab, what did you say? Would you like to take down my address, and I want to see you and discuss this? I said, Mauli Saab, I don't need to take your address now. I know your permanent address now.
That's a good job. But I do hope you won't call on him.
May I introduce a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Jeffrey Fowler. He was brought up in this area. He used to cycle as a lad around this school.
That's very interesting.
He is the head of the Department of Geography in Kareem and Imran's school.
I've heard so much about you. Let's say
Yes, listen to the tapes.
Very pleased to meet you. Most welcome. You know, these lads have been talking about you so much, Natasha. Very glad to have you among us. Have you been to that place, Ken?
Yes, sir.
Have you been?
Yes, sir.
Could you find that place?
We found it ultimately.
Ultimately. Is the route too lazy, too difficult to reach?
No, sir. It's very easy once one knows
I
where it
see.
is.
And how far is it from London?
It took us, sir, coming back.
That's right.
Either way.
Yes.
It took us 40 minutes to the mosque.
You thought so? Not very far. About the same distance as here.
Here, the roads are reasonable, and the distance is roughly about 30 miles, but it might be less.
But how do you drive? You don't drive like hell.
It's very nice house.
Spacious as it appears,
Yeah.
and also as new as it appears in the picture.
Yeah.
And what about the 16-acre piece? Was it a little?
Well, sir, we spoke, ultimately we did manage to speak to the estate agent.
Yes.
He tried to contact the owner, they were not there. So we couldn't.
It was an empty house,
Yes, sir.
locked up.
Yes, sir. But we saw the grounds,
Yeah.
speaking to the
Right.
estate agent, gardens. We don't exactly know the boundary of the land, but it is surrounded by fields, and they are quite flat and level.
Very good.
It seems a very
So it's
nice.
worthwhile to negotiate.
Yes, sir. And once Salma asked what sort of price would be for the 16 acres, and the estate agent said that they are looking for something in the region of 40,000.
Is that all?
Yes, sir.
That's really exciting. Did you approve the place? Good.
Really good.
So there is another Islamabad at your hands. Inshallah. Now the question, please. Ladies' question?
Huzur, one Irish Roman Catholic lady has sent this question to be answered. She says, why is there so much enmity and division in all religions, bringing evil in their train? This saddens and puzzles me.
That's right. This is a very fundamental question to be answered by every religion, in fact. The sad state of affairs as we find ourselves in vis-a-vis religious enmities is a state which in fact promoting atheism, and all the non-religious forces mainly attack religion from this on this front. They say wherever there is religion, there is hatred, there is enmity, there are no human values, no fundamental rights. So how could religion be true? It creates chaos, bloodshed, hatred of man against man. So it's not a good thing. This is the first question which has also been raised by the Holy Quran regarding the creation of man. The Holy Quran tells us that when Allah decided to create man, the objection that came his way from angels was that man would cause bloodshed if created and disorder in the land. We are here praising you and worshipping you and extolling your name in such peace. Why do you disturb the peace and create disorder instead? So Allah said, you don't know what I know, and rejected that objection just like that, just with one sweep of hand, as if you don't know and I know better. And then he went for the creation, and the result, as we see, according to this lady as well as according to others, is exactly as it was predicted by the angels. So that further adds confusion to the situation, that despite the fact that Allah had been warned well in time, quite ahead of time in fact, yet he went for it and committed that mistake apparently. So now this is one way of looking at things. There is another way of looking at things. And that, as I see, is the true pragmatic way of studying the situation. The religion can be studied in two different stages in the history of religions. Closer to the source and away from the source. And when I say that, I mean every religion, not Islam or Christianity or Judaism or any particular ones in mind, but entire history of religion is unfolded exactly alike in this respect. Religion should be studied in two parts, when it is closest to the source and when it has traveled away from the source. When it is closest to the source, also bloodshed is witnessed, but not by the adherents of the religion, by the opponents of the religion, those who do not believe in religious values. And those are again the same people, or almost the same people, who once were persecuted long ago. And they have got a distorted image altogether, otherwise the new religion would not have been revealed. So it also solves the philosophy of revelation of new religions or revelations within the religion. Now in this context, if you study the history of Judaism or of Christianity or of any other religion, Islam for instance, every religion at source was persecuted wrongly, unjustifiably by the opponents. And it was not religion which caused this disturbance. It was the lack of religious values which turned man into a beastly thing. He would take force into his hands and try to suppress all opposition. So religion is not responsible for all this bloodshed, although religion is made a scapegoat for this. So the blame is entirely wrong, it's on the wrong foot. It's not at all to be thrown upon those who stand for religious values, because the religion must be purest at the source. You can't conceive a situation which is contrary to this. You can't say that when it traveled away from the source, then it showed its true colors. While it was closest to the source, then it was hiding its true colors. Because it never happens. If you want to see something in purity, you always go closer to the source. So Ahmad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for instance, the founder of Islam, when he was spoken to by God, he received his revelation, he was all alone by himself. Like all other prophets always begin with this solo attempt at reforming the world. So he was alone, and when he raised the voice, the entire Meccans were roused against him, if not naturally, automatically, then by some leaders, with the result that the life was made impossible for him and for his followers. So they kept on spreading, despite the fact that sword was raised against them. The same happened with Christianity, the same happened with Moses and other religions in the world as I have studied them. So the bloodshed and hatred do not ensue from religious values, but only after religions have got corrupted. Now this gives us a wonderful clue to finding out a true religion, that is a religion in its purity. When you apply this standard to the existing religions of the world or existing versions of various religions of the world, then easily you can pinpoint only a few ones who do not preach hatred, who do not permit their followers to take others' blood. So in the field of competitors, very few religions or very few sects would be left. So although it is, to begin with, it is something which is hard to swallow by those who belong to religions, and it's an allegation which is hard to defend. Yet when you analyze it, then you understand. The fact is that religion always gets corrupted by the passage of time, and this is a general phenomena which does not leave anything out. Even the school where we are sitting, when it was built, it was a different shape altogether. And when it was occupied, it was repaired from time to time. So this musty odor which you find in it today did not exist here, did not belong here while it was in occupation. And while people who lived here truly and genuinely wanted to keep it in good shape. So when it was abandoned, then it was for the laws of nature to take over. And even while it was not abandoned, the phenomena of decay was still working slowly and slyly and quietly without anybody noticing so much, yet it was happening everywhere. So the religions take a much longer time than schools and all the buildings, but they do come to decay. And this enmity and hatred and ill will are the diseases of religions, not the healthy states of religion. So if you want to recognize, now here is the clue, if you want to recognize truth, either travel to the sources and find out what was the nature of that truth at that time, or among your, in the age you are living, if you want to study the best ways to reject all those religions or sects which plead hatred. Now, pleading of hatred is a complex thing. Sometimes it is not done directly, because as the values improve with civilization, the preaching of hatred takes certain ways, adopts certain ways. Instead of saying that one must be hated, that value should be rejected, that religion or the adherents of that religion should be persecuted, they intentionally misrepresent religions other than their own, and distort the images of other religions. The net result is hatred. This is what has been happening to Islam, unfortunately, at the hands of medieval ages of Christianity. All the literature which was published on Islam during that period was a completely distorted version of Islam. Our Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa Sallallahu, the founder of Islam, with the result that the hatred which it generated was left as a legacy for even the present generations, while there is so much enlightenment and the attitude of the so-called Orientalists has also fundamentally changed, yet they have left so much for the future generation of indirect hatred of Islam that still within their hearts they are averse to it. They consider Islam as a loathsome, barbaric ideology which knows no other word but sword and understands no other word but sword. So with sword it spread, and with sword it was crushed, and with sword it must be kept in its proper place. This is in a nutshell the political attitude as well as the intellectual attitude of the West towards Islam, though being very civil and highly cultured, they would not say that in so many words. But at the roots of policies, this always is the fear which goes towards failing the policies. And they are afraid. They are afraid at what? At the picture which has been created by the medieval so-called Orientalists about Islam. But that is not all. The unfortunate part is this, that in the present age, because the not Islam, but the Muslims went into decay, I should say, and distorted the image of Islam themselves, few figures have arisen in history, in the contemporary history. That of Khomeini, for instance, that of General Zia, for instance, that of Numeri, and so on and so forth. They are the distorted creations of the modern politics. Yet, people attribute all these evils and all these atrocities which are being committed in the name of religion to Islam. So a greater part of these atrocities, if you analyze further, are just a misnomer or a misplaced allegation. The allegation is justified against a person, against a freak of nature, against a distorted enormity, like some characters suddenly arise out of nothing, out of apparently nothing, I should say, like Hitler arose in Germany. So, in the religious world, these freaks of nature do appear here and there, and to gain their own personal ends or gain their own political objectives, they want to lean upon some ideology. And unfortunately, Islam is also made a scapegoat by certain personalities which are political in nature. And the general observation of the world is that, look here, it is religion which is causing all this disorder and distrust and inhuman treatment and beastly attitude towards other human beings. So if you analyze honestly and correctly, religion is not at all irresponsible. In fact, religion itself is being persecuted at the hands of such people. So they do not only crush the human values, trample upon them, but they also destroy the religious values. The result is that the hands of the opponents of religions are strengthened automatically. And the policy makers do not see these far-sighted effects, these far-reaching effects. For instance, let's consider American global policy. It would be very pleasing to America, even if, suppose, I don't allege that America is the generating source of all these policies. I don't say they are the designers of these policies. But the situation is such that they are receiving the benefit of crime. That is obvious. The result is that wherever these orthodox, intolerant regimes come into creation, they oppose all ideologies which are not at one with them in any way. Even within their religion, they are intolerant of other sects. Outside religion, they say Islam would not permit communism to spread. Islam would not permit Dadaism to spread and take root in this country. And the same attitude of intolerance is exercised against all their so-called enemies or opposing ideologies. This suits America, we know, because two birds are killed with one stone. Within the country, a sort of support is given to the so-called rightist ideologies. And it is seen and it is assured that leftism would not be permitted to spread here because Islamic ideology, that is to say, their brand of Islamic ideology is so intolerant, it would use force against all opposing ideologies. And when they do it, when they go about perpetrating these atrocities upon innocent people or working inhumanly against other ideologies, the result is that Islam's face is blackened in the outside world as well. The same Western, same America then thoroughly enjoys what is being done in the name of Islam within Pakistan, within Sudan, within Saudi Arabia and within so many other countries. And their films flash the news, their papers flash the news, their TVs discuss the matter and say this is Islam as in practice. So being the recipient of the benefit of crime, they also have the pleasure of mocking at these values and creating hatreds and misunderstandings against Islam. But it's not only Islam which is being made the scapegoat. I know the politics does not spare any religion. So we see Christianity being treated alike by these people. That is in South America. What is happening to Islam in Sudan and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, exactly the same thing is happening to poor Christianity in South America. Now what is the net result? The net result is, number one, this question which has come just now. What is religion? A creation of hatred, a creation of a machine of hatred against other human beings. But there are other results to follow. The fact is that instead of promoting rightism, it is exactly this situation which is helping communism and leftism to spread and flourish in those countries. Because truly the religious values are then rejected. Human nature is human nature. It understands where the true values lies, whether it follows the values or not, that is another question. But human beings do understand things. So when religion is treated, religion is imposed upon them against their will, in a distorted fashion, in a loathsome fashion, they turn to the left. And this is exactly what is happening in Pakistan nowadays. This is what is happening in Sudan and in other places. So the more caution, more force is to be used to suppress these rising values and this rebellion. The opposite reaction is still stronger when more force is applied. So this is not religion, this is politics. What is true religion? That is to be studied at the sources, close to the sources. For instance, or to go to the book of the religion. Whatever the teaching of that religion is, that should be found in the book. As far as Islam is concerned, all that the Holy Quran claims is this: La ikraha fid din. قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها. What a beautiful declaration. La ikraha fid din. There is no coercion whatsoever to be applied in any ideology. Now the word deen is used, not the word Islam. And this is the beauty of the Holy Quran as we understand it. When we read the Holy Quran, we know the fine distinctions it is making in the choice of words. The word deen does not only mean religion. Communism is a deen. This Western philosophy, not Christianity I mean, the Western civilization and its philosophy and the economic system, according to Arabic, they are also deens. Any path which is set by any people, whether it is shown by Allah or whether it is a man-made path, that is called deen. So the declaration of Islam is that there is no coercion whatsoever to be tolerated with regards to any religion, any path in the world, any ism. Every ideology is to be free. This is the declaration of Islam, not about Islam itself, but about every ideology in the world. And the concept of jihad in Islam, which again is so much distorted and so much hated in the West and so much feared again, is exactly the opposite of what is being taught. Because when you go to the book, the concept of jihad is not only different, but it is diametrically opposed to the concept of jihad being understood by the West, in West of today, and being practiced by some Muslims, unfortunately. And this concept is exactly in conformity with this declaration, La ikraha fid din. That concept is mentioned in a verse in Surah Surah Hajj. أذن للذين يقاتلون بأنهم ظلموا وإن الله على نصرهم لقدير الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم بغير حق إلا أن يقولوا ربنا الله ولولا دفع الله الناس بعضهم ببعض لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات ومساجد يذكر فيها اسم الله كثيرا. لهدمت صوامع وبيع وصلوات. That's correct, yes. Now this is a most fantastic declaration. It was made 1400 years ago, and the concept of jihad is made manifestly clear in this verse, because all the Muslim authorities are agreed on this one, this issue. They may differ on anything, but they are agreed upon this, that this is the first verse revealed in the Holy Quran permitting the use of force in defense. So what does it say? You understand the message, and then you understand the use of coercion in Islam by way of jihad. Then your answer to your question will be fully answered. This is why I am shifting to this part of it. The Holy Quran says the use of sword is permitted only to those against whom the sword is already been raised. Yuqataluna is the description used in this verse. Yuqataluna is a passive description which says only those people are permitted to defend their values by sword against whom the sword is already being used and they are put to slaughter. That is one reason why they are permitted. The second, alladhina ukhriju min diyarihim. These are the people who have been turned out of their homes and they were forced to fled. This is the second part. The third part is بغير حق. They had committed no crime. Sometimes people are chucked out of their countries, their homelands, because they have committed such crimes. Like people were sent to Andaman, islands of Andaman, in India in older days, when they had committed some great crime, some murder, and it was bordering upon a situation where either they could be persecuted, they could be hanged for that crime, or a slight shadow of doubt existed. So in the second case, instead of being hanged, they were sent to Jazair Andaman, that is the Andaman Islands, and lived the rest of their lives there. So that happens. But the Holy Quran makes a distinction. It says they are turned out of their home without any crime having been committed by them. بغير حق. These are the people who are permitted to defend themselves, and this is the concept of Islamic Jihad. What is objectionable about it? What is horrifying about it? There is nothing to be afraid. But yet the statement is not complete. There is something else to follow. Then you will understand the true nature of Islamic Jihad. This verse I have left halfway. I have yet to translate the following part, the remaining part of this verse. It says, وَلَوْلَا دَفُّ اللَّهِ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ. If Allah had not permitted certain people whose rights were being trampled upon to defend their values against the oppressors, what would have happened? Not that Islam would have been destroyed, not that the mosques would have been demolished. It says, لَهُدَّمَتْ صَوَامِعُ وَبِيَعُ. The places of worship of recluse, those people who go to the seclusion in some cave or some other place and want to worship God in quiet privacy, their places would also have been destroyed then. Then it says the churches would have been destroyed, the Christian churches. Look at the magnanimity of Islam. Discussing the defense of Islamic values, it begins quoting the examples not of the mosque, but the places of worship of other religions. It says, if we had not permitted it, then the churches would have been demolished, the synagogues would have been demolished, those of Jews. And in the end it says, also the mosques would have been demolished. So this is the true concept of Islamic Jihad. According to this verse, if a church is being attacked by non-religious forces and a Muslim joins the battle in defense of that church and is killed during that battle, according to this verse of the Holy Quran, he will be counted among the martyrs.